Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to take your sources, really dig in deep, and pull out those useful, maybe surprising, and genuinely interesting bits just for you.
And today, yeah, we're diving into English communication. We're using excerpts from Dr. Manoj Kumar Garg's book, English Communication Theory and Practice, as our guide.
Now, this book, it was originally for university students, right? Helping them get those essential communication skills down.
Exactly. But our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is to kind of cut through that academic layer.
Yeah, find the core ideas, the practical stuff that actually matters to, well, anyone trying to communicate effectively today. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's start right at square one. What even is communication?
Good question.
At its heart, the source defines it pretty simply. It's the process of, sending and receiving a message.
But right away, there's a key difference the book points out. It's about feedback, isn't it?
Precisely. Feedback. Think about listening to a recorded song. The singer sends the message, the song, but there's no immediate loop back from you, the listener.
Right. It's just going out one way.
That's one-way communication. The message just flows, sender to receiver. No reply expected in the moment.
Then what's the alternative?
Well, that's two-way communication. The source also calls it transactional communication. And here, both sides are active.
So the sender sends, the receiver gets it, thinks about it.
And sends back feedback.
Yeah.
And crucially, that feedback then influences the original sender. It changes things.
Okay, so that's where it gets dynamic, like a real conversation, or the teacher example you mentioned.
Exactly. A teacher lecturing, students asking questions.
Those questions aren't just passive receiving. They're active feedback, changing how the teacher might explain the next point. It's a real back and forth.
That's it. And that dynamic exchange, that back and forth, is why communication is so, well, fundamental. It's not just something extra we do.
The source really hammers this home. Communication plays this huge role in, well, everything, everyday life.
Absolutely. It's how we build connections. Personal ones, professional ones.
It helps, build those good relationships with friends, family, colleagues.
Yeah, without decent communication, it's just incredibly hard to connect or understand each other or even work together effectively. It's the bedrock, really.
Okay, so if it's that crucial, how do we actually do it? The source seems to split it into two main types.
Yep. Two big categories, verbal and nonverbal.
Verbal is the obvious one, I guess, using words.
Right, and that includes oral communication, speaking, and listening. Usually the speaker and listener are physically present, or at least connected live.
And the source warns about inattentiveness here, right? How easy it is to misunderstand if you're not fully tuned in.
Oh, definitely. You really have to be present. Then there's written communication, using written or printed symbols, words on a page or a screen.
The source calls this an art. It takes conscious effort.
It does, and it has some real strengths. Written is great for, say, long, complex messages.
Right, you can lay it all out.
Plus, you can aim for real accuracy, real clarity, because you can revise it. It works for distance, gives the receiver time to digest it properly.
And it leaves a record. Evidence, if you need it, allows the writer to really think things through.
All true. The main limitation mentioned is paperwork, which, okay, maybe feels a bit dated.
Or maybe today it's just the sheer effort involved in crafting something really clear and well-written.
That's a good way to put it. Now, the other side of the coin, nonverbal communication. Everything without words.
And this is just as important, the source says. And you can actually learn to do it better, consciously.
Absolutely. So much meaning gets conveyed this way. First up, kinesics. Basically, body language.
Head movements, facial expressions, eyes, shoulders, hands, all of it.
Think about the eyes alone. The source calls them an extension of the brain.
Wow.
Yeah. Eye contact can show interest, confidence. Avoiding it might suggest nervousness, maybe disinterest.
And the face.
Yeah.
Hugely expressive. Little muscle movements, eyebrows, lips. They can totally give away what you're thinking or feeling.
Definitely. Then you've got paralanguage. This is about the voice, but not the words themselves.
Like tone, pitch, how fast you talk.
Exactly. Tone, intonation, pitch, stress, pauses, even those non-word sounds like laughing, sighing, groaning, sneezing maybe.
Okay, maybe not sneezing is intentional communication, but the others, yeah, they add so much color.
Huge difference. Saying fine can mean I'm actually fine, or leave me alone, depending entirely on the paralanguage.
Okay, what else? Proxemics. That sounds technical.
It's just about space. Physical distance between people. The source talks about these kind of invisible circles we maintain.
Public, social, personal, intimate. those zones.
That's them. And the distance you choose or that feels comfortable says a lot about the relationship or the situation.
Makes sense. You wouldn't stand super close to a stranger giving a presentation.
Probably not. Then there's haptics. That's touch.
Like a handshake, a pat on the back.
Yeah, or an embrace, maybe a kiss in some contexts. It conveys affection, familiarity, sympathy, encouragement.
A firm handshake versus a limp one tells you something.
Yeah, it really can. Even a simple hand on the shoulder can be motivating. It's powerful stuff.
And one more. Silence. How is silence communication?
Well, it's the absence of words, but that absence can convey a lot. Depending on the context, silence could mean fear, respect, deep thought, disagreement, sadness, even ignorance.
Like the example of the student who stays silent when asked a question.
Right. It communicates something. Maybe they don't know the answer. Maybe they're shy. Maybe they're formulating a brilliant response. The silence itself speaks.
Fascinating. Okay, so beyond how we communicate, the source also talks about different layers or levels.
It does. Starts with the smallest scale. Intrapersonal communication.
Talking to yourself.
Essentially, yeah. Self-talk, thinking things through, reflection, analyzing options inside your own head.
Like Hamlet's to be or not to be. That's the classic example, isn't it? That internal struggle.
Exactly. We all do it, maybe less poetically, trying to figure out a tricky situation or make a choice.
Okay, then outward.
Interpersonal communication. That's the basic dialogue between two people. The source gives examples but doesn't go super deep into the theory here, surprisingly.
Got it. Then bigger groups.
Group communication. More than two people, usually with some kind of common goal or objective.
And finally, organizational communication within a company or institution.
Right. And this splits into two main types, internal and external.
Internal is, well, inside, between colleagues, managers, staff.
And it can flow in different directions. Vertical communication is up and down the hierarchy, manager to team, team to manager.
And diagonal.
That cuts across different departments and levels, so maybe the head of marketing talking directly to someone on the tech support team in IT.
Okay. And external is communication going out of the organization.
Precisely. Dealing with the public, customers, suppliers, the media. Can be written like brochures or official letters or oral, like phone calls or press conferences.
There's one more channel inside organizations. The informal one.
Ah, the grapevine. Yes, the unofficial network.
The rumor mill.
Sometimes. But the source points out its features. It's incredibly fast. It completely bypasses the formal hierarchy.
Can be useful sometimes. Spreads info quickly.
It can. It might spread useful tidbits, supplement formal channels, help people build social connections, even let folks vent frustrations without, formal consequences.
But the downsides.
Oh yeah, big downsides. Information often lacks any real authenticity. It can seriously damage reputations, cause conflicts, hurt morale.
Like that WhatsApp rumor about a class being canceled.
Exactly. Spreads like wildfire. Might be helpful if true, but could be totally wrong and cause chaos.
So with all these layers and types and potential pitfalls, it's not surprising that communication breaks down sometimes.
Not at all. The source lists causes like basic misunderstanding, confusion, just not paying attention, maybe a slip-up by the sender or receiver, even attitude problem.
And a big factor causing breakdown is noise.
Yes. Noise is anything that interferes with the message getting through clearly, and the source breaks down different types of noise.
Okay, like what?
First, physical noise. This is external stuff interfering. A bad phone line, construction noise outside, terrible weather affecting a radio signal.
Stuff around the communication, got it.
Then physiological noise. This is related to the physical state of the speaker or listener.
Like having a headache. Or maybe a speech impediment.
Exactly. Or mumbling, speaking way too fast, or having hearing difficulties. Physical barriers within the people involved.
Okay. What else?
Psychological noise. This is internal, mental, or emotional interference.
Like being really angry or stressed.
Definitely. Fear, anxiety, prejudice. These can totally warp how you send or receive a message. Also things like jumping to conclusions, being inattentive because you're bored, or just having poor memory retention.
That feels like a big one. Our own minds getting in the way.
It often is. And finally, semantic noise. This relates to the meaning of the words themselves.
Using jargon the other person doesn't know.
Perfect example. Or words with double meanings, ambiguous phrasing, even mispronunciation that causes confusion, different interpretations of the same word.
So how do we fight all this noise and breakdown? How do we make communication effective?
Well, the source highlights several key qualities, especially focusing on written communication, but they apply broadly.
Like what?
Conciseness, being brief, to the point. Cut the fluff. Saves time for everyone.
Clarity is another big one, right? Clear thinking, clear expression.
Absolutely. Avoid ambiguity. Use words that are precise and familiar to your audience. The source mentions intonation and pauses here too, which really applies more to oral clarity, but the principle is clear thinking.
Makes sense. And correctness.
Crucial for credibility. Accurate language, correct grammar, spelling, punctuation, getting your facts straight. Mistakes undermine trust.
And finally, concreteness.
Yeah, being specific, using vivid, definite language and examples instead of vague, abstract terms, painting a clear picture.
Okay, so those are key qualities. Now, the source also dives into specific skills and scenarios, doesn't it? Starting with listening and speaking.
Foundational skills, for sure. Effective listening isn't passive, it takes real effort. The source mentions different types.
Like attentive listening, where you're really focused and interactive.
Right. Contrasted with, say, selective listening, where you only tune in for bits you care about, or appreciative listening, like enjoying music or a story.
What are some tips for being a better attentive listener?
The source suggests things like giving your full attention, put distractions away, be patient, don't interrupt constantly, try to have a clear mental state, be open-minded, maintain eye contact, and ask clarifying questions.
Good advice. And on the speaking side?
That's how we send our message out. The source talks about interactive speaking back and forth, like conversations, interviews, discussions.
Versus partially interactive, maybe like giving instructions where the listener has a small role.
Yeah, or non-interactive, which is pretty much one way, like delivering a prepared public speech.
Okay, this leads into monologue versus dialogue. The source seems keen on dialogue.
It does. Highlights its objectives, like solving problems, building trust, mentions different types, like just a casual conversation versus a more formal inquiry dialogue.
And gives tips for being a good conversationalist.
Loads of them. Be an active listener that comes first. Be a smart speaker, meaning thoughtful. Show genuine interest. Be clear, polite, positive. Use good body language. Be flexible. All good stuff.
Sounds like a recipe for better chats all around. What about interviews?
Framed as a specific kind of dialogue, the source translates it literally as to view each other. It's usually a structured Q&A.
Like job interviews, obviously, to see if someone's right for a role.
Exactly. And also interviews for publication gathering info for an article or broadcast. The source gives tips for answering interview questions effectively, too.
Like listening carefully, being concise, giving specifics.
Being polite, rational, and importantly, knowing it's okay to say I don't know sometimes rather than bluffing.
Good point. Then there's group discussion, or GD.
Right. A common scenario, especially in academic or professional settings, the goal is usually to analyze, interpret, or debate a topic collectively.
What makes a good GD, according to the source?
It should be purposeful, interactive, democratic. Everyone gets a, say, cooperative and flexible. You need knowledge of the topic, of course, but also good oral skills and nonverbal awareness.
Is there a typical flow?
Generally, yes. Initiation, getting it started, the main body where the discussion happens, and summarization, wrapping it up. Often there's a moderator to keep things fair and on track.
The source uses specific topics as examples here, like need of distance education or reservation policy.
Yeah, that's right. And it's important for us to be clear, the book uses these topics simply as practice scenarios for the skill of group discussion. We're just reporting that these examples are in the source material to illustrate how a GD works, not getting into the politics of the topics themselves.
Exactly. We're focused purely on the communication techniques being taught.
Okay.
Okay, what about public speech?
Addressing a group, usually on a more formal occasion.
And there are strategies for doing this well, not just winging it.
Definitely not winging it. The source stresses planning, practice, having a strong opening to grab attention, using your body language effectively, modulating your voice.
Using examples, maybe some humor if appropriate.
Yeah, illustrations, wit, maybe even getting the audience involved somehow, and being prepared to answer questions at the end.
What kind of speeches does it cover?
Occasional speeches like a welcome address or a farewell speech, and also speeches on maybe scientific or media-related topics. Examples given include nuclear weapons or the role of media in shaping public opinion.
And again, with that media topic, it might touch on political aspects, but the source presented to illustrate speech types. Our job is just to relay that neutrally.
Precisely. The focus is on the structure and delivery of the speech as a communication skill.
Okay, shifting gears to written communication skills. Reading comprehension.
A key skill, obviously. Understanding written text. Converting those symbols on the page back into meaning in your head.
The source provides practice passages on all sorts of things, right? Mobile phones, population, even drug addiction or demonetization.
Yes, a diverse range. Again, the topics themselves are just the raw material for practicing the skill of comprehension.
The note-making, why is that highlighted?
As a way to condense and retain information effectively. For studying, for meetings, for research.
Key features are being brief, concise, just pulling out the relevant points.
Exactly. The source shows different methods, like linear notes just listing points or tabular notes using columns. Uses examples like making notes on self-employment or illiteracy.
Okay, and related to that are summarizing and paraphrasing.
Two distinct but related skills for processing text. Summarizing is about extracting the absolute main ideas, making it much shorter.
Boiling it down.
Right. Paraphrasing is restating the original text in your own words, keeping the same meaning and roughly the same length, but crucially, avoiding plagiarism. It shows you understand it.
The source gives steps for how to paraphrase properly.
It does, and again provides practice examples using various texts, including some on potentially sensitive topics like dowry or, again, reservation policy.
And just to reiterate, these are used purely as exercises in the technique of paraphrasing different viewpoints or information presented in a text, not as an endorsement or discussion of the topics themselves.
Correct. The skill is the focus. Then translation is touched upon.
Moving between languages.
Yeah. It mentions code switching or code mixing, that thing where people blend languages, like the Hindi-English example given.
Which happens all the time in multilingual context.
Absolutely. Then it contrasts basic word-for-word translation, which often sounds unnatural or misses nuances.
With functional translation, which focuses on conveying the actual meaning effectively.
Right. And also mentions transcreation, a more creative adaptation, often used in marketing or advertising, to make a message resonate culturally in a new language.
Interesting. What about longer forms of writing? Essay writing.
Covered 2 discusses the standard structure, intro, body, conclusion.
And different types. Expository, narrative, persuasive.
Yep, explaining facts, telling a story, or arguing a point. Gives tips for effective essay writing.
And lists quite a range of practice topics in the source material. Social issues, environment, media.
A real mix. Women's safety, corruption, global warming, unemployment. Again, these serve as prompts for practicing the structured writing skill of essay composition.
Got it. And finally, really practical stuff like letter writing.
Very practical. Covers the basics. Informal letters to friends, formal letters for official purposes, and specific business letters. Outlines the standard parts, addresses, date, salutation, body, closing.
And types of business letters, complaints, inquiries.
Yes, complaint, inquiry, sales, order, finance letters are all mentioned as categories.
The source gives full examples, like complaining about a faulty product.
Detailed examples, yeah. Complaining about a phone or mattresses. Inquiring about buying LED bulbs. Shows exactly how to structure and phrase them.
And very relevant today, job application letters.
Crucial skill. Explains the purpose, introducing yourself, and applying for a specific job. Mentions types like a cover letter accompanying a resume, or even an unsolicited letter inquiring about potential openings.
And provides examples, like applying for a software engineer job.
Yes, or a scientific advisor role. Shows how to tailor your communication to make a good first impression professionally.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a huge amount, all drawn from Dr. Garg's work. Stepping back, what's the big picture here?
Well, I think it really highlights just how broad and multifaceted communication is. It's not just talking. It's listening. It's body language. It's self-talk. It's formal writing. It's informal channels.
It goes from the deepest internal thoughts right out to, mass media messages or formal organizational structures.
Exactly. And the real insight, I think, is that effective communication isn't just one skill. It's this complex interplay of many skills: verbal, nonverbal, listening, speaking, writing, understanding context, managing noise.
All working together and relevant pretty much everywhere in life.
Absolutely. Think about your own day. That email you need to send to your boss, the conversation with a family member, understanding the news, even just figuring out your own thoughts. It's all communication.
Have you ever felt, like you said the right words but still got misunderstood? Maybe it was the tone, the body language, the nonverbal stuff.
Or struggled to write that report clearly. Maybe focusing on conciseness or concreteness, like the source suggests, could have helped. What part of all this really resonated with you listening?
Yeah, understanding these different layers of
Mm.
the noise, the silence,
Mm.
the different channels, it gives you a better toolkit, doesn't it?
Mhm.
A clear way to think about every interaction.
Definitely. Whether it's prepping for an interview, crafting an important message, or just aiming for better conversations day to day.
So this deep dive really shows that becoming a better communicator isn't a one-off fix. It's an ongoing process needing conscious attention.
It really is, paying attention to all these different aspects we've discussed.
So here's a final thought to leave you with.
Mhm.
Based on everything we've unpacked today, what's maybe one small, specific change you could try making in how you communicate this week? And what effect do you think that small change might actually have?